Welcome, everyone, to the Global Oneness Day Telesummit, Caring for Our Earth Home panel with today's special guests, Doreen Virtue, James O'D., Ocean Robbins, and Chutesco Martinez. I am Nanette Kennedy here with my colleague, Dee Meyer. We are co-coordinators of Humanities Team Spirituality in Action Community Circle program and the host for this panel. We have an extraordinary panel this evening with Doreen, James, Ocean, and Chutesco. We will explore environmental activism and other programs these special guests are deploying to care for our Earth home. In each case, these special guests are basing their activism in oneness with the divine and all of life. You will be amazed at the diverse and powerful forms of activism being coordinated by these global leaders. And we want to thank you to the enormous audience participation we've had today for Global Oneness Day and those who are participating live during the summit. I also want to thank the tens of thousands who are participating in on-the-ground programs, including the event in Monterrey, Mexico, church services around the world, the Global Rhythm Circle, and other programs. This is our 5th year celebrating Global Oneness Day, and in the first 4 years alone, over 100,000 people have registered to participate in the summit. Global Oneness Day has become our Earth Day for awakened humanity. I'm going to just real quickly go over how the panel will work. Dee and I will be asking questions of each panelist, and each panelist will have 3 to 4 minutes to answer. After that, we will offer an opportunity if you want to respond to a panelist and something that they've brought up. We are going to go deep and cover as much ground as possible during this call. And if you're on the webcast, you can enter comments in the Q&A area. And Dee, over to you for introductions.
Okay, great. I'm going to briefly introduce each speaker and invite you to come in and say a quick hello, and then I'll move on to the next speaker. And after I've introduced everyone, we will then go into the question and answer section. And I'm going to start with James O'D. James is an award-winning author of Cultivating Peace, Creative Stress, and Other Works. He is former president of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, Washington office director of Amnesty International, and CEO of SIVA Foundation. He offers consulting and leadership intensives at his mountain home in Crestone. Welcome, James.
Great to be with you this evening. What an inspiring event to have such a global participation in the theme of oneness. Thank you for organizing this.
Oh, thank you so much for being with us. Next, I'm going to introduce Ocean Robbins. Ocean is co-founder and CEO of the 150,000-plus member Food Revolution Network, adjunct professor in Chapman University's Peace Studies Department, and co-author with his dad, best-selling author John Robbins, of Voices of the Food Revolution. Welcome, Ocean.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. Now, I'm not sure if our other guests have arrived. Does anyone know? Is Doreen or Chutesco with us?
I'm with you. This is Doreen.
Hi, Doreen. Welcome.
Hi.
This is
Thank
Dr.
you.
Doreen Virtue. She is a clairvoyant metaphysician who holds a PhD, MA, and BA degrees in counseling psychology. Doreen now works with angel therapy in her writing and teaching activities. Doreen is the author of 22 books, which include The Care and Feeding of Indigo Children, Messages from Your Angels, and Healing with Angels. Welcome, Doreen.
Thank you. It's great to be with you and everyone.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. So I'm going to check one more time to see if Chutesco is with us. We will just then go ahead and go on into questions. And I also want to invite people to look at the full bios because we really cut these down to make sure we could get in plenty of questions. Okay, so our first question, first off, it's such a pleasure to be here with each of you. This panel is truly amazing. Each of you have created activism based in oneness for the earth, in peace, saving dolphins or working with food. May I ask each of you to talk a little bit about your activism, and please bring oneness in as a basis for your work. And James, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Ocean, and then to Doreen.
Great, thank you. Activism, well, I've just written a book called The Conscious Activist, where activism meets mysticism, and people can pre-order it from Amazon. So it's a timely question for me. In my early activist career, my activism was based largely on fueling moral outrage at the perpetrators of injustice and seeking legal punishment for those accused of human rights abuses and crimes against humanity. But my journey through the world's cruelty and suffering and places of massacre and genocide has led me to a place where I promote societal healing, forgiveness, reconciliation, and restorative justice. I've come to a place where I recognize all human beings share a common work. That is the transformation of ego. It is the ego that divides us into us versus them. It is the ego creates the other. It's ego that exploits and dominates. Ego that creates inferiority and superiority. So we've got our work cut out for us. Ego is dissolved by meeting the needs of others. The very heart of nonviolent communication is to surface the deepest need of the other person. We all need love and respect. We all need our hearts to be heard. That is why dialogue and deep listening are now a part of my activism. When we're all heard, we will really know that we are one. We'll experience oneness through that listening intensively to the heartbeat of the other, to the need of the other, to the concern of the other, to the desire for respect and to be loved.
Beautiful. Thank you. Ocean, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. Well, I've been working for a long time to answer the question, what can I do with this one wild and precious thing I call my life, and how can I use it to be a force of healing and love and liberation and beauty on this earth? And for 20 years, I directed a nonprofit organization where I was traveling around the world working with young leaders, often in conflict zones, and mobilizing for peace and justice, and helping build bridges across historic divides. One of the things I saw in all of that was that everybody eats. All over the planet, we all eat. Many of us eat 3 times a day. And what we eat has a huge impact on our world, on our health, on our lives, on whether or not there is even food for everybody to eat at all. And so my work has led me to decide to focus on a very tangible, very specific area that I think is one of those leverage points where we can have huge impact on ourselves, on our joy, on our ability to thrive, on our lifespan and our love span, as well as our health span, and where we can bring integrity between our actions and our visions and dreams for the world that we want. We have unfortunately come to have what I call a toxic food culture. We're inundated, certainly in the Western world, with massive amounts of pesticides, hormones, antibiotics, chemicals. The average American eats more than 150 pounds of added sugar per year. In this context, we're getting more and more fat and sick, and we're suffering. A third of our kids are expected to get diabetes in their lifetimes. Half of the people who reach the age of 85 have Alzheimer's disease. And these are diet-related. as our heart disease and obesity and cancer and so many other problems we're facing. So I've chosen to focus on food, and specifically on calling for a food revolution. And I work directly with my dad in that, who's been at this for a while. He's the best-selling author of many books, including Diet for New America. And we're calling for what we call Food 3.0. So Food 1.0 was survival. If you could get enough food to fill your belly, that was success. And for quite a few people in the world today, that's still where it's at, tragically. But now we've got Food 2.0, which is about commerce. It's food as a means, as something that can be bought and sold, and we have huge variety of kinds of breakfast cereal, more than 500 kinds in a typical supermarket. We have a massive range of options. We have more than 31 flavors of ice cream. There are so many ways that you can experience different tastes and textures and sensations from all over the planet, often for a pretty low price in the grand scheme of things. But if we continue on our current course, Food 2.0 ultimately leads to our devastation, and that's what we're seeing today, with out-of-control medical costs, with more and more people living more and more of their lives sick. So that's why we're calling for a Food 3.0, which means that the central organizing principle of our food system becomes health. Health for our bodies and health for our planet. And as we step into Food 3.0, we can look forward to trillions of dollars in medical care savings. We can look forward to more robust, healthy lives. We can look forward to better sex lives and more joy and more vitality. And we can look forward to more sufficiency and sustainability on this planet. We can look forward to a more stable climate. We can look forward to participating and having a world where everybody can have enough. And so that's my dream. That's my passion. That's my commitment. And I'm excited to say that a lot of people are becoming food revolutionaries.
Well, that is beautiful and exciting. Doreen, would you join in?
Oh, I'm so honored to be with everyone. Ocean, a huge fan of your family and your work. And James, it's wonderful to be introduced to your work. And my background is I'm a psychotherapist, and my specialty when I worked in that industry was addictions. And I helped primarily women with eating disorders. My mother, when I grew up, was a Weight Watchers counselor, and so I grew up on Weight Watchers food and with this whole weight consciousness growing up in Southern California. I really started to understand the body image issues that were facing both men and women. And food has always been something very important to me. I won't, be repetitive because of Ocean's amazing work and everything. But one thing that has happened to me was in 1995, I had my life saved through divine intervention, and it was just as unreal as that sounds. I was in an armed carjacking in Southern California, being held by a gun and another man with a knife demanding my car keys or my life. And to make a long story short, there was a divine intervention that occurred that made the men run away, and I was spared, and I kept my life and my car keys. And I got down on my knees in that parking lot, and I thanked God for saving my life, and I said, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. And I made the commitment to following my divine guidance no matter what people might think, no matter how illogical it seemed to be, no matter whether I didn't even know how it would happen. And since 1996, I've been traveling around the world talking about other people, teaching them how to receive their divine guidance. The year after that, I was already a very health-conscious Southern California woman. You grew up in Southern California. It was all about being thin. You didn't eat red meat because it was considered to be fattening. That was the reason. And so I ate chicken and fish and such. And the more that I was teaching about divine guidance, the more I kept getting this message that I was eating the energy of pain every time I ate an animal. And it was lowering my vibration. It was causing me to have a disconnect with the divine and the oneness, the non-duality. And I decided to go vegan in 1996. And it seems like such a simple thing, but it became like this whole compassion lifestyle that still to this day is endless. When we open our eyes and awaken to everything we buy, everything we wear, everything we do has a ripple effect in this physical world of duality, it really becomes about being very conscientious as a consumer. And so I went through my entire wardrobe, as an example, and found anything that could have possibly been made in a sweatshop, and I donated it and got rid of it. And I started to really be conscientious of the energy of the clothing. Not only am I a vegan in my clothing, I don't wear any leather, wool, silk. Once I found out that it was about 8,000 worms that are boiled alive to make a yard of silk, how could I wear that anymore? And then I, of course, am very immersed in the non-GMO organic movement. Where I live in Maui, Hawaii, on November 4th, we have a ballot measure to put a moratorium on GMO testing on our island until it's proven safe. And we're hoping everyone votes yes on that. And essentially, the corporations that profit from genetic modified chemical testing are fighting this bill very, very, very much with their money. And so a lot of my conscientious teaching and activism has been teaching folks about that every dollar we spend can either go to a corporation you believe in or to something you don't believe in. For instance, cotton is the number one GMO product in the planet, and it has the most pesticides of anything on the planet. And when we wear the non-organic cotton, very often it's been made in a way that's painful through sweatshops. Children who are slaves are making these very cheap T-shirts you can buy at the big box stores. And when we become sensitive, we can actually feel the pain of those poor slave laborers. And then plus there's the pesticides from the cotton and the dyes. If anyone is interested in this, Greenpeace has wonderful videos of, they're horrifying, but they're wonderfully awakening, videos of the hot pink dye of clothing industry being poured into the rivers of indigenous people who can no longer drink fresh water because we want hot pink clothing. And once you see these videos, you realize that we're all one in this world. We have to take care of each other. We have to stop buying the junk clothing. And we've got to take care of one another. I mean, if everyone needs to wear clothes, but we can buy it just as cheaply on a place like Etsy, ETSY.com, which is a lot of mothers staying home with their babies, sewing at their kitchen table, and they're using organic, sustainable fabrics with eco-friendly dye, and you get the energy of their love when you buy their clothing. And you don't need that many clothing. I mean, we're in this disposable society where we're told we need 50 pairs of shoes. We don't. You know, we can cut down, and we can really save so much suffering through what we wear, what we eat, making sure that whenever we buy one of the top 10 food groups that could be GMO, that we absolutely insist on buying organic or do without, because every time we buy potatoes, rice, tomatoes, zucchini, squash that's not organic, the chances are we're giving money to those corporations who are spending those millions to fight against the legislation we all want, which is GMO labeling, or at least labeling or getting rid of GMO altogether. Every dollar we spend makes a difference. So in that sense, we're all activists.
Awesome. When you were speaking, you said a couple of things that made me think of something that Dee and I were actually talking about earlier today. I was watching a TED Talks video, and this person, I can't remember the name of, was saying that part of the problems with every problem we have in the world is that we have too many choices. And you just mentioned, the ice cream and other things, and then Doreen, you just said something about the shoes. But I would like to know from each of you, and incorporate the commerce part of this because it's very important to it, how commerce and possibly having too many choices can affect world peace, can affect the food industries. And actually, James, I'd like to start with you.
I'm not sure I have special expertise with regard to that question compared to someone like Ocean, but what we're seeing is this notion that if we get the same stuff, if we organize in the same ways, we live our lives to the same standard of living, we'll have the perfect life. And that is not the case, is it? Because sameness is the journey towards conformity, and conformity is a journey away from peace. Thrives on diversity. So, for those reasons, I personally made the choice to come and live in a place like Crestone, Colorado, where life is organized around three principles: spirituality, sustainability, and community. Deep community gives you that health, that thriving. Spirituality also. I think we have to live inside the solutions. We have PhDs in the problem. We can have so much energy consumed by the problem. And yet when you hear the panelists this evening and all the energy that's going into the solution, that's where we need to be. We need to make fundamental life choices, live in places that are safer, more ecological, that are an expression of our values.
Agreed. Ocean, would you like to take a stab at that?
Yeah, well, I would just comment that one of the lies of our times is that we are separate, that we're isolated, that we can be truly fundamentally happy at the expense of another, or even while ignoring the well-being of our fellow humans and beings on this planet. I believe that your liberation is bound up with mine. I believe that your joy is linked to mine. I believe that we're far more connected than we typically realize with our conscious minds. And the tragedy is that this lie, while it may lead to more consumerism, while it is fundamental, perhaps, one of the cornerstones of modern civilization, it has also brought about a depth of loneliness, a kind of deep longing for meaning and purpose that is deeply unfulfilled in the modern world, that has led to unprecedented rates of depression and suicide and a sense of something just missing for so many people's lives. So I've actually organized international gatherings where one of the exercises we used to do is we would have people from very different backgrounds step into the circle if certain things were true for them. And I'll never forget this day when I asked, step into the circle if you were often hungry as a child. And we saw a group of people step in, and as it happened, they were all people of color. And then next question, step into the circle if you were often lonely as a child. And a group of people stepped in, and they were all white. And the group, it was about half the people in each camp, so to speak, and about half the people stepped in for each of those. And it just struck me in this profound way, is there some kind of inverse correlation between poverty and loneliness? Is it possible that sometimes people who don't have as much depend more on each other? And not that we have to choose between being poor and being lonely, but I think that there is something in this about what a deep human need we have for connection with others. And that sometimes adversity can bring us together. And one of the things we have lost in our glorification of things, of stuff, of our things and our stuff, is that we've lost often a sense of deep kinship with each other and even an awareness of the radical interdependence of all life. So one of the things I'm calling for in the healing of our times is that we recognize how connected we are to our fellow sentient beings and to one another, and we bring our lives into greater congruence with our values, recognizing that we're not going to be fundamentally happy and fulfilled if we don't feel that somehow, some way, our lives are making a contribution to those around us. So I think one of the greatest questions we can ask if we want to be happy is, how can I bring happiness? If we want love, it's how can I How can I bring love? How can I be an expression of love? And that's why I focus on food not just as a means to an end. It's not just a commodity to consume. It's a community with which we partake. And when we bring that kind of consciousness and reverence and beauty into our relationship with food, our whole world lights up.
I agree with what you're saying about, because I've known people that were less well off than myself or more well off than myself, and there does seem to be a correlation. And like you say, you don't have to choose to be poor to be happy, but I've noticed that in a lot of communities. Doreen, would you like to speak to this?
Well, yes. One thing that is very important for me and for a lot of the folks that I work with is the beautiful process of detoxing and growing in awareness through forgiveness. And I agree with what James was saying about that we have to watch out for the us versus them mentality of duality. It's so easy to be baited by the news, whether it's alternative news or conventional news. It just really sets us up for that team mentality, the Democrats versus Republicans, the corporations versus the 90%, et cetera. And that doesn't help anything. And those of us who are on the spiritual path, we are powerful in manifesting our thoughts and energies. We can't be throwing fireballs at anyone, and it creates bad karma. It doesn't move anything forward. So one of the things that's really helped me is to have compassion for everyone, everywhere, and that includes those who are acting in ways that I don't agree with. I can love them. I can love the hell out of them, actually, and see them through the eyes of love, and I feel like that helps with really bringing about healing and increasing the vibration and really watching out for that fragmentation. This person's bad, this person's good. That's very much of the ego where we want to compartmentalize everything. When we really realize that we're all one with God and we remember that from home, from heaven, when we come into the physical plane, there are opposites. And if we study any kind of history, which I find fascinating. I've read books going back to Sumerian times and Babylonian times, and of course the biblical scriptures are a beautiful history book. We'll find that there's been plagues and wars and power struggles and all of these things that a lot of people are screaming about right now. The world's going to hell in a handbasket. Actually, if you put it in perspective, things are kinder now. They really are overall.
That's where that adversary can bring us together, comes in, I believe. I just want to do a follow-up question here, and we'll go in the same order. If we create individual practices in oneness, will we naturally care for our earth home? And if we are one with the earth, don't we want to protect the earth naturally and all of its life forms? James, would you like to go?
Yes, indeed. Thank you. I think it's all about relationship. Everything is a part of everything else. The particle carries memories of its interactions with other particles. The universe records everything. When we think about practice, really understood this, we would have a sacred relationship with everyone and everything. We've been in rebellion, haven't we, against Holy Mother Nature, and we're paying the price for that rebellion. All practices have as their root a state of reverence, a state of deep communion with what is real and true. We're the only species to destroy its own habitat. Connecting with all life, a state of reverence and communion with its essence, not only end the rebellion, I think we will take that spiral leap into the next flowering of evolutionary process. Let me just say for a moment, connect that up with my own personal practice. think there are many dimensions of personal practice. One, as I said, is living in a place like Crestone. Community and sustainability and spirituality are really the priorities of the community. Also participate synchronized group. We're not physically together, but at 8 a.m. every morning, we really focus on bringing in the Christ spirit, the energy of the next spiral of evolution and manifestation, drawing that manifesting energy in to heal the planet at this time. One of my central practices has been dialogue. I'll just share a story with you on that front in terms of practice. One of the social healing dialogues I was conducting, there was a Rwandan woman, and she was so overwhelmed by grief that she could no longer sit in the circle as she told her story. She first went to her knees, and then she lay on the floor. Just had to lie down on the floor in order to get some sense of relief. African American woman who has done a lot in racial healing simply came over and lay down on the floor beside her. Another woman who spent years with children of war, co-facilitating social healing dialogues, also lay on the floor. Then one of the indigenous grandmothers came over and very lightly touched them, said some blessing in her native language. And you could feel somehow an opening of the tension, an opening of the grief, that bursting of the heart, that suffering which we have to go through. We have to go through that bitterness and then release it. And the sense of release is where I feel my God appears, where I feel that I really, truly am in prayer and in song and in liberation, when we release that suffering and begin the healing process.
Listening to you, James, is like being in a meditation. It's very calming. Ocean, would you like to answer?
Well, I agree with you. In fact, I was so absorbed in James's sharing that I don't remember what the question was that he was answering. Could you state it again?
Yes. If we create individual practices in oneness, will we naturally care for our earth home? And if we are one with the earth, don't we want to protect the earth and all of the life forms?
Well, I think that I actually have come to the unfortunate conclusion that it is possible for a person to be growing as an individual, to feel like they're becoming more personally powerful and more conscious and even more attuned to their spirit in connection to greater oneness, and somehow to still have a disconnection from the actual world around them. So I think it takes both. I think it takes the inner work and the outer work. I think it takes doing and being to really step into not just Food 3.0, but the new paradigms that are essential, frankly, to our survival as a species. You know, Albert Einstein famously said, you can't solve a problem on the level that created it. You have to rise to the next level of consciousness. And we obviously need a new level of consciousness in the world today, and we're all feeling that in different ways. At the same time, I think that part of what I'm at least working towards is the place where spirit touches earth, where love shows up in politics and in policy and in action. I think that is one of the really pivotal challenges of our times. We've got to take our spirituality down from the mountain. We need it up in the mountain, but we also need it down in the cities. We've also got to take our politics and bring another level of wisdom and love and consciousness into them, right? So we're not just trying to win battles. We're trying to bring transformation. And I see that happening in many different sectors. many different places around the world. And it's heartening and beautiful. I also think that some of the crises and violence that we're facing are intensifying. We're seeing levels of fundamentalism and fear and devastation around the world that are unprecedented. And so in the midst of that, as we see in some ways light and dark both intensifying and growing, I like to think of it sometimes that old systems, old ways of thinking and being that are unsustainable, they're by definition not going to go on forever, but they also might not go out quietly or softly. And so there's a lot of suffering in the world right now, and my heart breaks with that. And I also ask, what can I do to bring some healing and some transformation and some beauty in the midst of that? So to me, practices that facilitate inner peace are necessary to my own survival in the midst of it. I want to be able to be in the presence of the craziness and not become consumed by it or engulfed by it. I want to continue to stand for something of integrity and love and beauty and possibility. And I also want to be connected. So I guess the question really for me is ultimately a spiritual practice, a practice of oneness. I think one of its final litmus tests is going to be, is it ultimately going to serve how we show up in the world, our ability to be embodiments of the love and the oneness that we believe in. And, that's the kind of spirituality that most interests me.
Mm-hmm. In the inner and the outer. That's awesome. And Doreen?
I agree so much with what Ocean and James are saying, and what I could add to it is in my travels and talking with folks who deeply care about the planet, who feel frustrated and who ask, what can I do to help? I think a lot of it has to do with all of us knowing that we each can help right now. I think a lot of folks are a little confused or even passive or having self-doubts that they could make a difference, and they look to leaders. They want someone should do something about this. Is what I hear a lot. I say, well, that someone's you. If you're getting the idea, that's a sign that's your purpose. And it doesn't have to be a gigantic, newsworthy thing that we do for the planet. I mean, something as simple as recycling or making your own cleaning products rather than buying the toxic ones at the store. Tea tree oil cleans just as well as anything you get on the market, and it's eco-friendly, for instance. And doing one thing a day, you can feel really good about it. And then if you want to add to 2 things a day, you really do. Collectively, we can make that 100th monkey and make a huge difference. And the oneness, to me, comes from knowing that you're one with God's wisdom, power, creativity, ingenuity, connectedness, deservingness, worthiness. Know that you're ready right now to do what you came to the planet to do, instead of listening to the ego that always tells us we have to take one more class, read one more book, we have to keep jumping through hoops to be qualified to make a difference in the world. That's the ego delaying us through the time mechanism, when in the spiritual truth, it's all now, and right now we can make a big difference, all of us.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I am just so taken by the process that you've all talked about and how they're different in their own ways, with James looking at the sacred relationship with everybody and everything, and the social healing dialogue. And Ocean, really, it's got to be a balance of inner and outer work. And Doreen's that we all have to know we can make that difference and follow our thoughts, follow our guidance. So for me, I want to know what your daily practices are for communing with the divine, and if you could just share with us a little bit what your daily experience is like.
I think I really shared that, so I'll rest.
Okay. Ocean?
Well, I often awaken and bring myself into prayer. And I don't do this every day, but my intention is that my first thoughts as I become conscious that I'm awake will be ones of reverence and will renew my conversation with the infinite. And so sometimes I have a prayer that I return to almost every day at some point, and often first thing in the morning, which has helped me to release all ambition, all attachment, and all desire for all that's not so, and help me to embrace totally with all that I am, all that's real. Beautiful. And on my truest mornings, which are not all mornings, I awaken into that intention. And there's just this feeling of whatever the ego is attached to, whatever ambitions I have or desires I have that are not truly so, are actually an encumbrance from my ability to be present with what is truly so. And only when I'm in relationship to what is actually so am I actually capable of doing anything real out of that relationship. And part of what's so is the desire for change, is the passion for change, is perhaps even a deeper recognition of that which is not working in the world right now. But it's part of what's so. And when we embrace that truth, inherent in it is the capacity for transformation. Inherent in it is the capacity for something different. And our own response mechanism, our own immune system in relationship to that reality. So I hold the intention in my life to become ever more available to build my life on real ground instead of on stories and imaginings and hopes and fears. And from that place, although it can be heartbreaking as well as beautiful, at least it's real.
Inspiring. Doreen?
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. To me, I don't really go to the concept of morning or night anymore. To me, it's 24 hours or even beyond the measurement of time. I don't wear a watch. I don't look at the clock as much as possible because I like to be in that space and non-time. And those of us who have this constant prayer to be of service, we're working while we're sleeping. I mean, our souls are traveling. We're wherever we're needed, and we're showing up, and people are seeing us as angels. And what we are is we're sleeping earth angels who are projecting our souls into places that need us. And so when I awaken, a lot of times I'm processing what I did during the night. And one of the things I've found that have really helped me through the day to keep my energy high, because I'm caffeine free, I don't do any chemicals at all. So my prana, the energy connecting to source, really comes from yoga. And particularly lately, I've found doing yoga outdoors to be the most energizing activity I've ever been involved in. And you don't have the closed-in circulating air. You've got Mother Nature air, whatever it is that day. You've got the music of nature rather than a canned radio. And your body just synchronizes with Mother Earth. It also synchronizes with Mother Earth if you have your own garden. And when you pull a carrot out of the dirt, for instance, and it's organic and you've made it yourself, and that's as locally grown as you can get, your own backyard or your apartment, if you need it. What I found is it's like reading the newspaper of Mother Earth when you eat of her womb right there and consume it, and you eat it in a way that you're conscious, not reading something while you're eating or working, but just slowing down, eating slowly, enjoying the process, the flavor, the crunchiness of whatever you're eating. It really syncs you up with Mother Earth. And when you get in sync with Mother Earth through spending time outdoors, eating locally, then you naturally can hear what she needs. She'll give you assignments.
Beautiful. So I've got a second part of the question. We are all being called to a higher level of service for our Earth home. What invitations would you like to share with our Global Oneness Day listening audience? And we'll start with James.
In the sense of invitation to, I would say, 3 elements, probably. First, we've touched on various of the panelists have touched on this. But live your cosmology. I invite you to live your cosmology. I so often meet people, they so excited about the new theories, what's happening, the great ideas that are emerging. And I contrast that to the whole evolutionary process, where people died for their beliefs. They were burnt at the stake. They were tortured. They gave everything they could for a new vision of the world. And the cosmology that is emerging through the synthesis of science and ancient spirituality, so central to our moving forward. We have to be inside that cosmology, that everything is alive, everything is connected, everything is conscious. I think when we are really inside the cosmology, manifesting it, living it, the change will really occur. I think the other invitation I would say to you is live the solutions. Enough of the problem. The problem has got so much entropy, it's pulling everything down with it. We've heard this evening so much solution energy, so much vitality for giving us the next phase of the next spiral of evolution. So even though media is full of entropy and full of disaster news, we've got to face the problem, but put our energy inside the solution. And the third invitation, I may not have understood your question correctly, but would be to engage in dialogue. Dialogue, the root of the word dialogue means through the logos, go through the logos, surrender to higher reason, to higher mind, to higher thought. That's where the oneness reveals itself, in the logos, dialogos, through the logos. And it's there that we will find each other. So debating and so on, these are all important aspects, analysis, debate. Dialogue is where we can meet each other at the next highest level and find that what really matters is that listening to the heart and being with each other and seeing each other for the first time. Those are my senses of some invitations to our listeners in terms of practice.
Thank you. Ocean?
Well, I would invite our listeners, first of all, to take a moment to just smile at yourself. We push ourselves so hard. We try so hard. And I want you to know that it matters, that everything you do that's an expression of your integrity and your values matters, and that fundamentally at your core, you're enough. Who you are is enough. And from that place, you'll take actions, you'll grow, you'll learn, you'll deepen, you'll create more congruency between who you are and how you show up in the world. And it all starts from a fundamental core, a fundamental you, the you that was you the day you were born, that will be with you to the day you die. And I just want to say thank you for you. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your participation in this event. Thank you for whatever part of you longs for and works for a brighter world for those you love and for the whole world. And my next invitation is to put that love, to put that goodness that's at the core of you into practice, into action. To look at where there's a gap between the way you want the world to be and the way it is, and how you can find some way with your life of bridging that gap. Now, I've chosen food as an area of focus. I could have chosen a lot of places, but because I've chosen food, I will invite you to join me in looking at food as one of those places where you can make an impact. When you choose organic food, non-GMO food, food that is not sourced from factory farms, food that is congruent with the kind of values you want, the way the farm workers are treated, the way the trade is conducted, getting more local food, more real food, and less processed junk. These are all steps that send out ripples in your body in the most intimate and personal ways as this food becomes you, and into the world in the most political and social of ways as your choices ripple out and affect farm workers and families and communities and ecosystems all over the planet. So in food, as with so many things in life, we have an opportunity. We can accept the status quo and unconsciously consume and perpetuate it, and we know where that leads. Or we can decide to become everyday revolutionaries. And we don't know exactly where that leads, but I want to find out.
Thank you. Doreen.
Well, I don't want to be repetitive. James and Ocean have covered so much, and I also just want to reiterate that so many of the folks that I get the beautiful opportunity to talk to around our amazing world have great ideas and great inner guidance for innovations. Many of them you can see speaking at TED Talks, and they're coming up with these beautiful innovations that involve recycling and reusing and sustainability, and it's so exciting right now to me. I think that there's this balance that the greater the problems, the greater the solutions that are presented at the same time. And so a lot of these solutions are coming through the brilliant minds of very young people. I've never seen before, because I've been giving workshops for 25 years worldwide now, and in the last year, the number of 20-year-olds coming to my workshops has probably tripled. And they're coming on their own. They're not coming because their parents bought them a ticket. They're just showing up. And I'm so excited and also have so much hope in my heart because these 20-year-olds are on the threshold of being the custodians of our planet. And I'm seeing that they have these great ideas. But a lot of what they need is us older folks to teach them how to organize themselves. You know, a lot of them, they don't know how to put a plan into action. They're visionaries. They've got this big old plan, but they don't know how to do a business plan or a mission statement or how to break down an idea into doable steps. So we all work together in this way because we all have something to contribute. And I'd love to see us focus on supporting the young visionaries, what we call the indigo generation, and helping them to know that you don't have to wait till you're 45 years old to make a difference. You can start now. And give them opportunities to speak, give them funding, and really believe in them, because I tell you, they're saving the planet. I also want to put a pitch into us being aware of who's running for office. I know that as a sensitive person, I don't like to read the news. It's so dishonest, first of all, and a lot of it's very manipulative. But it's so important for us to research who's running for office and then to be registered to vote and then to vote for folks who we believe in. I am really, really pleased to know personally a lot of people running for office right now who have their hearts in the right place, who refuse to take corporate donations, who are doing it as grassroots projects, and they deserve all of us to be behind them. And so there's a lot of reason to feel good about this planet. Let's not focus on the negativity. Let's focus on what's going right, and let's support it.
Thank you. We are coming to the end of our call, and Nanette, would you like to wrap up the call for us?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to say it's been a very wonderful hour, and each of you had some pretty majorly compelling comments, and I really appreciate that. But I would love for you all to take 1 minute apiece and share any closing thoughts and share with people how they can learn more about your work and your websites. James, would you like to go first?
Sure. So the website is jamesod.com. That's jamesodea.com. And I'm just launching a new course with the Shift Network called The Heart of Spiritual Peace Building. It's really, I've taught peacemaking and peace building for many years, and this is an integration of the spiritual and and the peace building. And as Ocean was saying, connecting the inner spiral of growth with the outer evolutionary spiral. And I would like to just offer people the opportunity to take a look at my new book, which is coming out, can be ordered, The Conscious Activist, Where Activism Meets Mysticism. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ocean?
That sounds like a great book, James. Thanks for writing it. And thanks for what a light you are to so many people in this world. My organization is the Food Revolution Network, and you can join us at foodrevolution.org. Again, that's foodrevolution.org. And we'd love to have you with us. You can find tons of resources and action items and blog articles, and you can join our list and get a free real food action guide. And ultimately, you are part of the food revolution every time you take a stand with your life and with your food choices for the kind of world you want to create. So we're one of the resources that's out there. There are many. We'd love to have you join us.
Thank you. Doreen?
Yes, my website is angeltherapy.com, and the easiest way to connect with me is through my Facebook page, which I post messages every few hours, is facebook.com/DoreenVirtue444. I've got a lot of books, Angel Detox, about how to detox your whole life energetically, your friendships, your career, and your body and mind. And new books coming out. One that I'd like to highlight is Angels of Abundance, because so many people I meet feel trapped in the wrong job just to pay the bills. And there's such abundance for all of us to support us in our life purpose. So Angels of Abundance is messages about how to not have money be an issue anymore, but have that continual flow of support come in for your life purpose specifically.
Well, thank you. Thanks to everyone. It's been a great hour. And coming up next is the Global Oneness Day closing ceremony. You don't want to miss this. It's just a wrap-up with all the day's thoughts, and there's a special treat coming up with Steve Farrell, Barbara Fields, and Ricky Byers-Beckwith. And we want to thank you, our guests, the audience who have purchased the Global Oneness Day upgrade packages. This program supports the Work of Humanities team and the Association for Global New Thought, and we are grateful. So to learn more, go to globaloneness2014.org/upgrade. We will now take 10 seconds of silence for oneness as our next panel comes on the call.